Everybody, welcome back to Video Game Episode. Here, going to continue the series, What? Why? We're going to take a look at some of the weirdest video games I've ever played and that I love. And if you haven't noticed already, this looks like the House of the Dead, but it is in fact the typing of the dead, because Sega just took the House of the Dead and turned it into a typing video game. And that is really strange, although it is quite fun. If we get far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well, and you can use your keyboard to do that. This doesn't make any sense to me. I would love to know who was in the meeting when they decided to take a franchise like the House of the Dead and turn it into a keyboard-based game. Because it doesn't make any sense if you say it out loud, but when you're playing it, it works perfectly and makes this game actually have some sort of longevity that it normally wouldn't. You'll see there they even added a Dreamcast on the back with a Dreamcast battery, and we are wearing a keyboard on strings around our neck. They didn't just turn this game into a typing game, they also added a full keyboard into the graphics as well. It's a small touch, but it really does sell the entire experience. And I will say, if you've never played the House of the Dead 2, incredible light gun game, but as a keyboard game, it works spectacularly as well. And this is not the only game from Sega that uses a keyboard from the light gun genre. Lupin III, the shooting, also became Lupin III, the typing on the Naomi. It's weird, it's wild. I don't know why they thought this was a good idea, but I'm so glad they did this. I don't know if Sega was trying to get these into classrooms in Japan as sort of a teaching aid, or even in the US, because if you're old enough to remember Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing in grade school, I would have rather played this all day long and twice on Sundays than that absolutely abysmal piece of edutainment software. And some things just kind of slightly change, like this monkey here in suspenders who sometimes has a banana in his pocket. It isn't just a keyboard overlay over the game. Things do change slightly, and we got Potato Man and Free Ride there. And some of the things they make you type absolutely make no sense whatsoever, and that's kind of the gameplay hook. They're going to put two words together that you would never type together, and that might throw you, or they're going to give you an expression that makes you kind of stop and think, what the hell is that? Like safe as fire? We all know fire isn't really safe, so your brain pauses for a second, not just to process the keys that you need to hit, but also some of the absurd things you're seeing. Although herring roe, delicious, would eat it 10 out of 10 times. Try it if you never have. But I do love how the developers have pivoted the gameplay here. Normally you'd be using a light gun and shooting, but you just need to type sunrise to get those bullets in. And I don't know in the universe of the House of the Dead 2 how pushing a key actually causes damage to the enemy, because they did put keyboards on everybody, as you will see here, but it's not like bullets are coming out of those keyboards. It would have been funny if there was just some handguns mounted to the bottom of those keyboards that you could have shot just by pushing keys. Now, one weird and strange thing about this game is that you don't actually need to use the spacebar. You can eliminate that. Just hitting the keys in a row works perfectly fine and actually speeds you up. But the ranking system is based on how quickly you type that word. And getting a high rank in this is going to be really hard, because Shaggy and Bad Det, two completely different things using completely different letters. And whatever word you start typing first is the word that's going to attack that enemy. You'll see here this monkey does have that banana in his pocket. If there's an enemy closer to you and you've keyed into or locked onto the wrong one, just hit escape and you can start typing a new word as well. But it's just such an odd system that works perfectly well. Like EU later just kind of trips your brain up. But the soundtrack is still the same from the House of the Dead 2, and it's amazing, so go ahead and listen. I will be right back. I'm never quite sure which soundtrack I love better, the original House of the Dead or House of the Dead 2. If you ask me today, it's this game. If you ask me tomorrow, it'll be the original. But whichever game you play, you know you're going to get a really good soundtrack. But yeah, this is just such a strange experience, and I would really love to know, what this audience with Sega was expecting to be. I would love if they actually took things like this and put them into schools, because trust me, kids would much rather play something like this than any of the other learn to type programs that you would have ever experienced, because if you're kind of in my age range, you definitely had computer class in school, and there was software that taught you how to type, and it was terribly boring. Give me the House of the Dead any day of the week, and I would happily sit there in class with a smile on my face, shooting zombies with a keyboard and learning how to type quickly. Now, of course, no school district's probably going to allow that in the US, but maybe in Japan it was in schools. I couldn't find any reference to that being any sort of function for this game, but if you know anything that I don't, please leave me a link down below. But you're going to see each boss has its own hook. We can only type those letters when the chest is exposed, just like in the game where we could only shoot that weak point. And I love how the developers incorporated the act of typing along with the mechanics of each boss fight to make it really feel like you're playing the same game but with a completely different input control. And this was in arcades as well. I'm playing the Dreamcast version here, but it's on Naomi, and I've never seen a cabinet for this in real life, but it must be amazing just to walk up to an arcade cabinet in Japan and see a keyboard sitting there waiting for you to play the House of the Dead 2. It must be a sight to behold. I've seen it in photographs, just never in real life. But as far as the game's concerned, it's the exact same game as the House of the Dead 2 with slight mechanical changes to incorporate the typing in. But if you've ever played the original game, you're going to love it as much with a keyboard because it's the exact same thing. And somehow, if you're watching this video and you've never played the House of the Dead 2, play it both ways. Give the keyboard a shot after you use a light gun, because you're going to find that while it's the exact same experience, it plays in such a different way that it almost feels brand new in its own right. You'll see there that we weren't able to type that word in quick enough, so now we have to branch to a different path. So it's just as fun as the original game, except with a keyboard. Now I will say that every once in a while, if you type too fast, it does seem to drop some inputs, and that E seems to be particularly hard for me to hit. Now maybe I just mistyped it, but I'm not looking down at the keyboard, I'm looking at the screen because you need to see what's going on. And you'll see here that sometimes the game just does stop compared to the original, and the zombies just start running at you, and you're going to have to type things like inner self or hypnotic. These are fun little dynamic things that you have to think about in dry sushi. Doesn't sound very good whatsoever. You gotta have a little bit of sauce on there somewhere. But again, another boss fight, and it's going to mechanically pivot things even more. This is more diverse gameplay than the original light gun variant, because you're going to see here with Tower, it's going to ask you questions, and not only do you need to type correctly, but you have to get the answer correct as well, and it's going to be quick. Which is a mode of transportation? I started typing rocking horse and realized that was stupid. Rocking horses don't go anywhere. Which animal is poisonous? It gives you 2 snakes. Which snake is actually poisonous? Like, you need to figure out it's the king cobra. And honestly, there's some questions you might just not know the answers to, but which fruit is round is grape, but there's a banana up there, and there's a banana in a monkey's pocket. Whoever was pivoting this game loved monkeys and bananas. But it just changes things up so dynamically that you can't help but feel like you're always seeing something new, and I think a kid's fort made out of fish sticks would be a fun time, at least until they started to rot. But it's just a weird game. If you're going to make an offshoot of the House of the Dead, there's a lot of different genres you can do it in before you get to a typing game. And there are offshoots of House of the Dead like Zombie Revenge that aren't as good as this game. They're still really fun, but they're not typing. And that's the unique thing about the Typing of the Dead, and why I wanted to include it on this playlist, because if you were just sitting in a meeting at Sega pitching ideas and you said, hey, let's take the House of the Dead 2, let's give the player a keyboard and let's make it teach them how to type faster game, someone in the corner would be like, what? Why? The name of the series. But when you actually sit down and play it, you realize it makes an absolute ton of sense that is really fun once you get into it. I love these bats here with just one single letter that you have to push, but they're always at opposite ends of the keyboard, and it really makes you stretch your mind. And I am pretty sure if you start playing this game, you might actually get better at typing. It probably does teach you how to type quicker, because it makes you think about where those keys are and how to type them in a cadence to make sure that you don't get attacked by a zombie. It's probably actually something that they should put in schools to get kids better at typing. But yeah, leave me a comment down below. Have you ever played the Typing of the Dead or any of Sega's other light gun games that were turned into typing games? And it's just a strange genre, but it's so much fun. Sega loved to experiment, and we all won for it. But go type me a comment, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.